What's going on, YouTube, and welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte. Today we are going to preview the 2025 Eastern Conference Stanley Cup Preview Finals. We're going to discuss that here today. If you like this content, want to see more videos like it, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. So the Eastern Conference Finals in 2025 is going to be between some teams in the South Belt. And we're going to be taking a look at the South Belt, the Sun Belt. Can't believe I said that. The Carolina Hurricanes and the Florida Panthers. And, I didn't pick this in my bracket because I had Tampa doing better than I thought. But once we knew how good the Panthers were, I'm not surprised that it was Florida and Carolina. I did pick it, not in my bracket, but I think a lot of you guys kind of saw that coming. I think a lot of us saw it coming, that this is how it was going to end in the East. Maybe there was the sliver of hope if you were a Leafs fan, but let's be honest. I mean, the foolish mortals that we are, did we really think the Leafs were going to win that series? No. So, the Florida Panthers, their first two rounds, tough teams in the Atlantic. Tough series against Tampa Bay, tough series against Toronto. And you could look at it one of two ways. You could look at it, this team is battle-tested, and they're going to be ready to go for Tuesday against Carolina. They've played some big boy teams. Or you could look at it as, well, maybe they're a little bit tired. Maybe they're a little bit beat up. And considering they won the Stanley Cup last year, maybe that fatigue's going to set in a little bit. So there's two ways to look at it. And we're going to find out pretty quickly how the Panthers are going to fare. Carolina, on the other hand, first round matchup against New Jersey, basically swept them. I mean, they won in 5, but basically swept them. And Washington, it was as quiet quiet of a series as we could think, and that's because Carolina was winning that series pretty handedly too. So it's two ends of the spectrum. We're going to see it somehow come together. The two storylines you can create, or the Panthers are very battle tested and ready to go for this matchup, where Carolina is actually going to have a real opponent in this round. Or you look at it the opposite way. Carolina is ready for this series. They have a lot of time to rest through the first two rounds. They haven't been battle-tested yet, but they are full of energy and ready to go after the Panthers. It depends on how you look at it. Now, I will say, I think Carolina has an interesting situation here with Bobrovsky as the goaltender for the Panthers, because I think Sergei Bobrovsky, you look at the first two games in the second round series against the Leafs, he was not great. And ever since then, he shut down the Leafs and was incredible. Now, the Panthers' defense was incredible too, but man, Sergei Bobrovsky was not giving up anything. And I wonder in this series against Carolina, who Carolina is very opportunistic, are they going to be able to score against Sergei Bobrovsky? That is going to be a really interesting storyline, because we know the Panthers can score goals, and against Carolina, they will get their opportunities to score. The question is, I think really, can Carolina get one past Bobrovsky? Because Bobrovsky has been in playoff form, and playoff Bob is no joke. And I think the Carolina Hurricanes are going to see that here. So, now we get to kind of the point of the playoffs where I think a lot of the refereeing kind of just, they let the guys play. And we saw that especially in Game 7 of the Panthers series. Like, they got away with a lot, both teams. But I think in terms of slowing the game down, Carolina is going, Rod Brind'Amour, we know how he is. He's notorious for trying to get the refs to get calls, right? I think he's going to definitely do that in this series, especially with guys like Sam Bennett, Aaron Ekblad. The obvious suspects, Marchand, Kachuk. The obvious suspects on Florida are going to be on watch for Rod Brind'Amour. He is going to make sure he watches them and lets the refs know, hey, you missed one there. That was a headshot. Hey, you missed this one. Hey, you missed that one. So it's going to be interesting if they actually call those or not. The other thing that I'm thinking too, I think with Carolina's situation, the way they play in the playoffs under Brind'Amour, how much of that is going to get bent to the knee by the Panthers? Because we know how Paul Maurice, he loves to play his guys. He loves to run the lines out, whatever. He doesn't really care about matchups. He knows his lines. They can all go out there. I mean, you look what happened in Game 5, right? They were getting goal scoring on the top line from a guy that was scratched in Game 4. That is the kind of depth that the Florida Panthers have. Is Carolina going to be able to match that? And I think that's going to be a really interesting part of the series. We're really going to see Jacob Slavin put on showcase again. I think Jacob Slavin is one of the best defensemen in the National Hockey League. Just he does it so naturally and seamlessly almost, to the point where you're like, wow, that guy is talented. He is a really good defenseman. I think we're going to see that again in this series. So with that said, I think when you're looking at both these teams, the way they play, very similar to each other, pain in the ass teams to play against for the opponents that they've had so far. Tons of goal scoring from both sides. I think it's going to be interesting to see, with Carolina having a little bit of time off, like, could that hurt them in the first 2 games of the series and it takes them a minute to wake up? That could be an issue. And if it is, and Florida goes up 2-0 in this series, it's going to be tough for Carolina to come back from that. I'm not saying that they're going to get swept, but I think, up 2-0 for one of these teams, and specifically Florida, it's going to be a lot for Carolina to come back from. If Carolina is able to keep these 1-0, 3-1 games, I think Carolina has the real good edge there. And we saw in Game 6, the Maple Leafs shut out the Panthers. So the Panthers there is vulnerability there. It's not super easy, but it is possible. So for the Florida Panthers here, I think the focus is on making sure you give the Carolina, you jump on the Hurricanes early in Game 1, hopefully Game 2, maybe even, but trying to jump on them early. And for Carolina, sticking to your structure, because your structure is impossible to play against. It is so difficult to play against the Carolina Hurricanes when they're on point. And getting into the zone, breakouts, we saw that as an issue a little bit even for the Florida Panthers in the series against the Leafs. The middle of the ice, there was not a lot of room. There's going to be less ice against Carolina. So I wonder how that's going to kind of play out. And when we look at who I think genuinely can get to the Stanley Cup final this year, Florida won in 2024. 2025, I really like Carolina's chances here. I think this is their time. And maybe I'm going with the underdog here, because I think Florida is kind of the favorite to probably win the entire thing this year at this point. I really do. Like, I like Florida. I think it comes down to just, sometimes you just have a weird gut feeling, and it's probably wrong, but I just have a weird suspicion that this is Carolina's year. Some of the stuff we heard from Sebastian Aho toward the end of the regular season, going into the postseason, just the disappointment, the culture, this team is more locked in than ever. And it's not to say that Florida isn't, because Florida has a lot of difference makers on their team. But this is now their, 7th straight playoff series? It's a lot. It's a grind. We just talked about that in the beginning of the video. The grind of just grinding it out. It's a lot. It's taxing. And I think for the Florida Panthers, these teams are tight. But I'm going to go with Carolina winning this series in 7 games. And I know my Hurricane fans are going to love me. And I know Luis is going to hate me, because he's probably going to be right when the Panthers go back to the Cup final. Maybe it's the fact that I just want to see a different team in the final. I think that's a large portion of it too. Like, I just want to see somebody else in the final. And to see Florida-Edmonton rematch isn't necessarily the top of my card. I don't really want to see that on my bingo card. But in reality, is that probably what we're going to see? At this point, yeah. But I'm going to go with the odd pick. I'm going to go with Carolina winning this series in a hard-fought 7 games. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. What do you guys think of this series? Let me know who you think is going to win this series down below. As always, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you again next time.